Shachiputam Atasmupam Rupam Tasakachamuri Purim Maturim Goshvatam Radha Kundam Ahoradika Madhavasam Rakto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Guru Tammanatosmi Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namo Ananda Leelamaya Vigrahaya Hema Paddivyatschave Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namo Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namo Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Bheda-abheda Smaraha Smurli Mara Radhikara Sakamama Kripanidhe Supriya Charna King Kurim Kuru Tavai Rasmi Najrami Tavana Jivikyaya Devi Tam Charantikam. First of all, I offer my Sastang Dandavat Puspanjali, my heart like flowers, thousands and thousands of times, at the feet of my Holy Master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmatiya Paramaradatam Guru Pada Padma, Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Shtoltarasita Sri, Rupanugacharya Varya, Shila Bhakti Vedanta, Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Guru's Guru, to my Param Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada, and to his Guru and all the great spiritual masters in our Gaudiya Rupanuga Vaishnava tradition going back thousands of years, directly to Sri Krishna himself. My pranam to all our masters. And finally, I offer my pranam to all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, all Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis.
Go ahead.
So it's a great honor for me to return to this luminous, holy place, open bhakti. So we're most grateful to Sarah and John for their hospitality here. And this evening and tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, and also Monday morning until lunchtime, this retreat will go on. So it gives everyone a chance to unplug from the external world for some time. Because when we are attached and distracted by external things, then the mind is always unsteady. So many thoughts are spinning around. You know, in the morning when you make a smoothie and you put your fruits in the blender, like that. So the mind is like that, with all the ideas in the blender. So what we're going to do for 4 days is unplug the blender. Just unplug the blender for 4 days. Don't worry, all the things that you may be attached to will still be there on Tuesday. They'll still be there on Tuesday. So just until Tuesday, forget everything. And just allow the mind to become calm and steady. This evening, I want to speak about the wonderful virtues of the equilibrium. In Bhagavad Gita, there, Sri Krishna describes, he gives a definition of yoga. He said, Samatvam yoga uchate. Yoga means equilibrium of mind. As long as the mind is in a state of disturbance, it's in a state of psychological oscillation, then we cannot understand our true self. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there it is said, Evam guna brahmyamane manasa vikala puman yati tat sadharmyam badre hyalingo lingavan iva. A very beautiful verse. The meaning is this: Avikala puman, the soul, yourself, who you are, is spiritual and transcendental and beyond time and unflustered, unruffled by anything of this world. However, the mind is evam guna brahmyamane. It's caused to wander, to be distracted, to go here and there, always into external things. We become extrovert and we lose our power of contemplation. We lose our power of reflection. We lose the power of introspection. So as long as the mind is in this oscillating state, then what happens? Yati tat samyatam badre. Yati tat samyatam. The soul who is spiritual, who is transcendental, who has no birth and no death, he identifies with whatever's going on in the mind. As long as the mind is turbulent, the soul will identify with that. And when the mind calms down, then there is a separation. One's identity, one's sense of self just intuitively rises out of the mental static. Just so much noise. You know when the radio is not on the station? Just mental static is going on. So we come away from that mental static and become tuned into the station. Krishna radio. The reality, which is eternal, and beautiful and sweet, full of love, kindness, and mercy. So, on the one hand, when the mind becomes steady, our identity separates from identifying with the mental fluctuations. But if the mind is disturbed, then our sense of identity becomes blended with the mental platform. And then we very much identify with the physical body and think of ourselves as some kind of like biological meat machine, which is always in a threatened, precarious position because the body is growing old. Not only the body, but in this plane, everything around us at every moment is in a state of decay. Everything is decay. And so there's no shelter. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run and hide. You can run, but every shelter will decay. And the next shelter will decay. And in the end, your body will decay. And we have to leave it behind and take another body due to the stringent laws of karma. You see? So there is no shelter. There is no peace in the material plane of consciousness. But once we rise to the spiritual plane of consciousness, then we'll have a vision of peace and harmony and perfection everywhere. Even where others are seeing chaos, we will see a perfectly orchestrated symphony under the control of the Supreme Lord. So, here in this verse, Yati tat samyatam badre. If the mind is disturbed, then our sense of identity becomes blended with that disturbed mind. Hyalingo lingavan ivat. This verse is so beautiful, so poetic. Aling, the word ling in Sanskrit means shukshma sharir, the subtle body. We have a physical body made of earth, water, fire, air, and space. And then we have within that the psychological body, mind, intelligence, ego, and the subconscious mind, the chitta. So these 5 elements make the physical body, and within that there is a subtle body of 4 subtle elements. When we die, that what people call death, that means when the soul transfers from one physical body that is broken down, then he gives up the physical body, but the soul doesn't give up the psychological body. Rather, the soul travels along with the psychological body and takes birth in the next body. So you have a different body, but the same personality. Yes, same personality. So whatever mental problems you have now, don't think when you die you get a free pass. All those problems are going with you to the next destination. So it's probably the best policy to try to deal with them now, rather than carry them around with us lifetime after lifetime. Okay, so now this subtle body that we carry with us from life to life is called in Sanskrit ling shri. Now, the soul really does not have a ling sharir. He's just identifying with it. Understand? So here, alingavan, alingo means the soul actually does not have a subtle body. But lingavan iva, he becomes the possessor. He takes possession of a subtle body. This is my mind. This is my personality. These are my desires, my likes and dislikes, and philosophical and political positions. So, actually, all of these things which are in the mind, they have nothing to do with the soul. Soul is quite separate from them. But as long as the mind is in a state of turbulence, the soul identifies. So, throughout all the Vedic scriptures, developing the quality of equilibrium has been discussed again and again and again. Because until we become psychologically very steady, in a state of serene equilibrium at all times, we cannot understand the divine reality. This is very important. Why? When we think about knowledge in this world, what do? We go to college to get the knowledge. And there you study every day. And each day you hear some information, some data points, and you write them down. And you collect all your data points until you have constructed a monument, an architectural monument of concepts, which you call your field of expertise. So, material knowledge is like this. It is called Kram Purvak Vikasita Gyan. It is acquired in pieces. It's a piecemeal accumulation of pieces of information that are gradually put together to make a big picture. Now, this piecemeal process is only possible because we are in a state of illusion. And in the state of illusion, we experience duality. That things are all separate. All things are separate from everything else. And so a little bit of information about this and a little about that, we think that it's valuable. However, reality is beyond duality. Reality is?
Beyond duality.
Yes. Reality is beyond duality. We conceive of this world as being khanda. It can be broken. It is broken into pieces, and all of those pieces are randomly bumping into each other according to the laws of physics. But actually, reality is akhanda. It is an indivisible truth. And because the supreme reality is indivisible, you cannot take a piece of it and then another piece and gradually learn about it. It has to manifest in your consciousness as it is in its totality. Understand? And so while the mind is in a state of disturbance, then the disturbed mind is always doing vikalpa, that is separating category, this category, this category, this category, this category, and so on. And so the reality, which is indivisible and non-dual, can never be conceived of in such a disturbed state of intelligence. And therefore, to realize the supreme, indivisible, one non-dual reality, one has to calm the mind, come into the state of equilibrium, and then that truth will be reflected in the steady lake of the pure heart. You see? Just like if you see a lake, I know we're very close to some lakes here. This is a famous place for lakes. So if the water of the lake is moving and you look, you cannot see your reflection. But if the water were to be very still, then you get a clear picture. So in the same way, as long as our mind is disturbed, we get a distorted impression of reality. And when the mind becomes in equilibrium and in a humble mood, we petition the Supreme Lord for His mercy. Then He reflects His non-dual beauty upon the clean mirror of our heart. So this is why Krishna has said in the Bhagavad Gita, Samatvam yoga uchate. Yoga means equilibrium. And He's expressed this in different ways. In the second chapter, Yam hina vyatyam te purusham purusharshava samadukam sukham dhiram saomra tattvaya kalpate. Krishna said, hey Arjun, those persons who understand that happiness and distress is coming to us in our life like the seasons. Now it's springtime. So we're having some showers, springtime showers. Afterwards then the summertime will come and it will be hot. Then the autumn will come and all the leaves will turn brown and fall from the trees. Then the winter will come and you'll be buried in snow. And then the springtime will come again. You see? So the weather is changing according to the seasons. So in the same way, in your life, happiness is coming. And then a difficult time comes. And then a winter comes, a very difficult time. And then again springtime comes and things don't seem so bad. And then it's summertime again. And you feel happy. And then again the winter comes, like this. So if we are, what do they call today? They have diagnosed one mental condition, seasonal affective disorder, right? The person is happy in the summer and depressed in the winter, like that. So now be introspective and try to understand how we have a type of mental seasonal affective disorder. When our mind is disturbed, then the soul feels, I am disturbed. When the mind finds its objects of pleasure, then the soul is feeling, now I am successful and happy. So Krishna said, don't be like this. Whatever is happening in the world and whatever is happening in your mind, stand back and watch it objectively and impartially from the vantage point of your soul. And if you'll do that, what will happen? If you don't become objective and watch your own mind from the vantage point of your soul, then when your mind begins to churn with some emotion or some fantasy or some obsession, then you latch onto it. You entertain it. You become absorbed in it and it takes you along for the ride. And that is how we stay for years and decades and lifetimes in a state of illusion. So at some point, we have to hear from the Vedas and hear from the lips of Sri Guru, a spiritual master, how to wake up from our stupor of this lower level of consciousness. This level of consciousness, even though we may have 2 arms and 2 legs and walk around and speak so many languages and build a civilization, but it is essentially not different consciousness from the lower animals even. So when a soul comes in the human form of life, they're not meant to live on the lower platform of consciousness like animals who don't have a developed intelligence. We're meant to use our intelligence to discriminate, to search out a guru and study the Vedic teachings so that we can rise up, just like sometimes an elephant falls into a swamp and is sinking. But the elephant, by his determination, gradually rises up out from the swamp and onto the dry land. It's a struggle. But all of us, we all have to undergo that struggle. That is real progress in life. Real progress is not seeing that your bank balance is growing and growing. Real progress is how the soul is rising up out of the lower modes of nature, out of illusion, and realizing the soul's own inherent glorious prospect. There's no room for pessimism in life, only optimism, because we are manifested by God with a glorious prospect, with a future of love and perfection in the eternal plane. So the Vedas say, Uttishtata jagrata prapya varam nibodhata kuryasyata ryanisita duratteya kurvampatas tet kavyo pedanti. The meaning is, get up, wake up, and strive for the goal of life. But be careful. Oh, this is interesting. Get up, then wake up. Because usually we wake up and then we get up. But the Vedas say the opposite. They say get up and then wake up. And the reason is this, that our soul cannot just wake up like that. It's not so easy for us after many lifetimes in a state of illusion. But if we just physically engage ourselves in the activities of bhakti, singing the holy names, chanting, dancing, hearing, and all different types of service, making garlands, worshipping the deities, or just cleaning the temple room, all the activities connected with bhakti. Then by getting up, that means becoming active, using our senses and mind in devotional service, then we'll wake up automatically. So this knowledge will be understood when we become active in bhakti yoga. At first it will be theoretical, but when we become active in bhakti yoga, the heart will begin to open and all realization will manifest. So atistata jagrata varam nibodhata. Get up, become active. Then your soul will wake up and you can strive for the glorious prospect of human life. But be careful. The path of spiritual life is sharp like the edge of a razor. It's a narrow path. It's very difficult. You can make some mistake at any time and sabotage your own progress. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna said, Yadastaya naro rajan na pravadjeta kahichit davanyamilya netreva naskalat na patetya. The meaning is, the path of bhakti is so easy. You can close your eyes and run. If you go outside and cover your eyes and then run as fast as you can, what will happen? You must fall over or bump into something and then fall over. But Krishna is saying, bhakti is so easy, you can close your eyes and run and you will not slip and fall. So now the question comes, in the Upanishads it is said that the spiritual life is like the edge of a razor, very difficult. And Krishna is saying in the Srimad Bhagavatam, close your eyes and run, it's easy. So how can we reconcile? So the answer is this: if we are independent and trying to grope our way in the darkness by ourselves, then spiritual life is like the edge of a razor. But if we are under the guidance of an enlightened person, someone who has already walked the path and already arrived at the destination, and we serve and chant and study under their careful and affectionate guidance, then we can run very quickly and we will not slip and there will be no problem. This is the teaching. So Krishna is saying, Yam hi na vyatyanti te purusham purushashabha sukam dukam somritatvaya kalpate, that if a person is sama sukam sukha dukam dhiram sama, he remains the same in happiness and in distress, in success and in failure, in profit and in loss, in honor and dishonor. These are all the dualities of this world. If a person can maintain the same attitude, the same spirit, the same peacefulness, the same equilibrium in the face of all the reversals of life, then somritatvaya kalpate, that person, he becomes eligible for amrita. Amrita means immortality. And amrita means a taste of divine nectar. Both of these things are there. So in Bhagavad Gita, perhaps you know, Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, can you tell me, what are the symptoms of a person who has attained the state of trance, samadhi? Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it said samadhi or yoga means the complete restraint of the mental fluctuations. This is the state of samadhi or trance. So if someone is in a trance, what symptoms do they have? So just sitting there like this, with the eyes rolled up in the head. Yeah? This is anyone can roll their eyes. This is not the sign of samadhi. Trance means prajati yada kaman sarvam pata manogatan atmana atmanaiva atmana tushtash Stita pragyastad uchate. The person who is stita pragya, whose consciousness is fixed, it's very steady, unmovable, then he has given up all worldly desires. Why? Because worldly desires are just fantasies produced by the turbulent mind. The turbulent mind is always throwing up some impressions from the subconscious mind, from past experiences of happiness and distress. And from the subconscious mind, those impressions come to the conscious mind. And then we fantasize, oh, I want to enjoy this material object or situation or whatever. And so the symptom of a person who is in samadhi, because his mind is not turbulent and it's not throwing past impressions, samskars, into the conscious mind and is not identifying with them. So therefore, he has no material desires at all. Doesn't mean he has no desires. He has no material desires. He can have so many spiritual desires. Desires to serve Krishna, to please Guru, to establish the flow of devotion in the world for the benefit of all souls. These types of desires, they can be, but not material, selfish, self-centered, egotistical desires and worldly ulterior motives. They are gone. Because the subconscious mind is clean, it is no longer filled with material impressions which are assailing in him, in the conscious mind, one after another. So this is the first symptom. Prajati yada kaman sarvam pata manogatan. He has given up all worldly desires because those desires arise from the turbulent mind. Atmaneva atmadatushtas. And the second symptom, he is satisfied in himself. If someone will ask, do you need anything? No. Why? At any point he can sit down and chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the physical plane melts away. And he can smell the fragrance of the flowers in the spiritual world, the humming of the bees, the call of the peacocks, the sound of Krishna playing his flute and calling his devotees to dance in the forest of Vrindavan. So he's Atmaram, self-satisfied. All joy is experienced within, without dependence on anything external. So, Stita Pragyas Tadulchate, such a person is called Stita Pragya, fixed in pure consciousness. Sri Krishna gives another explanation. He said, Yada samharate chayam kurman gani vasarvashaha indriyan indriyatebyas tasya pragya patishtita. Just as a tortoise can withdraw all his limbs inside the shell. So in the same way, a person in trance can withdraw his senses from the external objects. You know, in January, people make their New Year's resolutions. I promise that in 2025, when I'm depressed, I will not eat a gallon tub of chocolate ice cream. But then what happens? A few days later, the senses are pulling towards the object and they cannot stop. They cannot check this. But the person in trance, doesn't matter what's in front of him. Gold, beautiful man or woman, whatever. All the senses are under complete control and he can withdraw them and be in a state of bliss. So this is a symptom as well. Dukeshvanu vignamana Sukeshu vigataspriya Vita raga vayaskroda Stita dir muni uchate. That person is called a muni, a thoughtful sage, who, in the midst of disaster, his mind is not disturbed. Do you remember? Have you heard the poem by Rudyard Kipling? If you can keep your head when all around you are losing theirs. So in the midst of difficulties, the person who remains calm, sukeshu vigataspriya. And when a person meets with great success in their life, they become powerful, wealthy, famous, influential, whatever, but they don't change. They're the same person, and they're not allured by the glitter of the external world at all. They're impervious to that. Only a person in trance can do it. Sukeshu vigataspriya vita raga bhaya krodha. The person who has no fear. Fear only relates to the physical body, because the soul is indestructible. The soul cannot be cut by any weapon. It cannot be burnt by fire. So the person who is fearless, vita raga bhaya krodha, who is free from attachment and free from anger, never become angry. You know, we have a bead bag, and when we chant, this bead bag represents our heart, and this finger represents anger. As soon as we're angry, we pull this finger out. Hey, you! What did you say? Say that to my face. I'll shoot you. This finger represents the anger and ego. So when we chant Hare Krishna, this finger cannot stay inside the bag with the holy mala. That means always keep anger outside of your heart. Never become angry. If you are somewhat disturbed, it is the mode of passion. But if you become angry, now you've gone into the tamagun, the mode of ignorance. That is the energy of destruction. It is self-sabotaging and also sabotaging for others as well. So be far away from that. So that person who's free from attachment, fear and anger, he's called a sage of steady mind. So try to make an effort at all times. Yoga, and especially Bhakti Yoga, is not a part-time activity. It's a full-time activity. At every moment of your waking day, from the moment you wake up, as soon as we realize that we're awake, we roll over in bed, give pranam, and say, pray to our gurus. Then jump out of bed and say, Jayati Janani Vaso Devaki Jaya. Immediately when you wake up, you should utter this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, describing the pastimes of Krishna, to wash off the stupor of sleep and become alert. And even in your dreams, if you practice bhakti enough at night, when you're dreaming, you'll be reading Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, or chanting Harinam in a kirtan, or serving the deities. It's very nice, because what you do during the day, it comes up into your dreams. So if you practice bhakti very nicely, then even at night you will not be losing your time sleeping. It's not a waste of time. You'll be hearing, chanting, remembering, and so on, and serving even in dreams. So if a person engages in bhakti yoga and at every moment is very aware, they're very careful, very alert, not to become ruffled, not to become emotional, but to remain steady and blissful. That is due to faith in Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim vrichati. Srila Prabhupada called this the peace formula. Gyatva mam shantim vrichati. The person who knows three things can attain peace. The first thing is Bhoktaram yagatapasam. Krishna said, I am the enjoyer or the beneficiary of all sacrifices and all activities. So we can become frustrated if we have the mentality that this world exists for my enjoyment. This world is my amusement park. This world exists. It's just sitting there waiting to be exploited by me. So Krishna, no, this is not the correct attitude. Rather, we are souls. And as souls, we exist to be exploited by the Supreme Lord. Now you might think, well, that's terrible. That we're all slaves. We're God's slaves. But that's a material conception, because in this world, if you're subordinate to anyone and you have to live for the other person's happiness, then that's kind of oppression. But the spiritual plane is the plane of pure love. So to live for the happiness of another person is natural. That's the state of love. And Krishna himself has said, Mad bhaktanam vinodartam karomi vivida kriya. Krishna said, everything that I do is just to give happiness to my devotees. You see? So the spiritual plane is like that. All the souls live only to give happiness to Krishna. They never think of themselves. And Krishna lives only to give happiness to his devotees and does not think of himself. And so that is the plane of pure love. So first of all, we have to accept this position of that we are not bhakta. Bhakta means the enjoyers of the physical plane, but rather we live in such a way to give pleasure to the Supreme Lord. And then we'll be situated in our constitutional, the soul's constitutional position. So that's the first thing. As long as you think that you're the enjoyer, you will be the sufferer. And when we consider, oh, I am to be enjoyed, I exist to be enjoyed by God, then we actually enjoy spiritual joy. This is one of the great mysteries of life. The more you try to enjoy, the more you will suffer. And when you stop trying to enjoy independently and separately from God, then joy is the nature of your soul. This is the first thing. Bhaktaram yagatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. The next one is, Krishna said, you should know that I am Maheshwar, the great controller of all the universes. In other words, not even a blade of grass can move without the permission, without the will of God. Nothing is separate from Him. So when we adopt that vision, then we can understand that everything that is happening is for everyone's benefit, even if it may be difficult. You see, a child, they just want to eat sweets all the time, or just play all the time. But the parents tell them, hey, eat your spinach. Or, hey, you cannot play football now, finish your homework first. And at the time, the child may complain and protest, but. But then when they become mature, they get older, then they realize, oh, I am so happy that my parents gave me some self-discipline, because now I've become successful in my career and in my objectives. Just we're giving a relative example. So similarly, we may point the finger at things in the world. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Actually, this is all criticism of God. This is all envy of God. This is all hostility towards the Supreme Being. You have to stop it. We cannot go on with this bad habit. It may be that ordinary people think in that way. But you know, the gates to hell are wide and there's many customers on that path. Enter by the narrow gate. There's a mentality, there's an attitude. It's not the attitude of the ignorant masses. It's the attitude of the enlightened persons. And that is that everything that happens ultimately is to benefit every soul. So don't criticize any situation. Be accepting. And have faith in God's wisdom. Though a soul may be suffering, undergoing difficulties now, when he grows up and becomes mature, and stops protesting, he realizes, oh, actually, those experiences were good for me. They were restoring my inner sanctity. They were reforming the rough edges of my character and polishing me to make me into the final product of spiritual perfection. So this is the second thing. Sarva Lokameshwaram. Sri Krishna, the Supreme Conscious Being, is in control of everything, and he is not an incompetent, bumbling idiot who fumbled the bag, who dropped the ball. Everything is controlled in a perfect way. So no, don't try to interfere and criticize. That is just bringing us into the mundane material consciousness, into the world of duality. So that's the second thing. So whatever happens in your life, accept it without protest and try to see that every cloud has a silver lining. Then the third thing, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, means know that the Supreme Lord is the best friend of everyone. So these two are related. One, he's controlling everything, and he's also your best friend. And so as your life is unfolding, he's creating situations and opportunities for our betterment and for our improvement. So, a person, Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati, who can imbibe these three principles. Number one, I am not the enjoyer, God is the enjoyer. Number two, he is in control. The world is not a chaotic, meaningless mess. And number three, Supreme Lord is also your best friend. And if we can imbibe these three principles, then naturally the heart will become peaceful. In that peaceful and devoted heart, so many aspects of realization and wisdom begin to rise. So I just want to speak about this one verse of Bhagavad Gita, 5:14, chapter 5, verse 14. We'll just look at one verse of Bhagavad Gita, and this is an example of the type of clarity and wisdom that arises for the devoted person whose the inner realm has become sanctified with these three principles. Here, Sri Krishna is saying, Na kartritvam, na karmani, lokasya srijati prabhu, na karma phala samyogam, svabhavastu pravartate. The general person is in a state of illusion. Here, Sri Krishna is explaining the mechanisms of that illusion and how someone who has pure consciousness is not controlled by illusion. First of all, each person in this world thinks, I am free. Freedom. I can do what I want. I can ride the breeze. This mentality is there. But, you know, if you go to an astrologer, they can look at your natal chart and they can calculate from that, oh, when you are 20 years old, you will do this and this will be the result. And when you are 30 years old, you will do this and this will be the result. And when you are 50 years old, you will do this and this will be the result. And in this time in your life, you'll become ill. In this time of your life, you'll become rich. In this type of your life, you'll be bankrupt. And they can see everything from the chart. So, what gives? What gives? If everyone is feeling like I'm free and making choices in real time and doing whatever I want, but your future is written from the moment you are born, then what gives? Maybe you're not free. Perhaps that freedom is one type of illusion. And that is what Sri Krishna is explaining here. He said, Nakatritvam. It means that Prabhu, the Master, here Prabhu, the Master, in one interpretation it refers to you, the soul. Because the previous verse described that this body is called the city of 9 gates. The city of 9 gates. Because the soul is actually small, atomic particle of spirit floating in the region of the heart chakra. And so relative to the soul, the body is like a big city. And it has 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, mouth, 2 ears, and the lower gates as well. So 9 gates are there in this body, and then the Master, the Prabhu of this body, is sitting there. Now the question comes, who is initiating activities? I will do this thing. So Krishna is saying, Nakatritvam, that the soul does not initiate the activities of the body. Nakarmani, the soul does not perform the activities. So the soul is not instigating, do this, and the soul is not performing it either. Na karma phala samyogam, and the soul is also not making the body unite with the fruit of work. Let's say you work for 5 days a week, and at the end of the week you get a particular paycheck. And that may be a regular thing that happens every week in your life. And so then you make the connection in your mind that if I do this, then I get this result. Because there's a certain regularity in it. But many unexpected things happen in our life. And then we say, well, that had nothing to do with me. But just as the unexpected things come, the expected things are also coming by the laws of karma. It wasn't really that we produced them ourselves. Many persons, they think, oh, today I'm going to do this thing and I'll get this result. And on the way, whatever, their plane crashes. Or so many disasters you see all the time. So, 3 things here. The soul does not initiate activity, it does not perform the activity, and it does not bring about the union with the fruit of the activity. So then the question comes, then who is initiating the activities? Where are they coming from? Now someone might say, well, God must be doing it. God must be doing it. And that's another interpretation of the word Prabhu. Prabhu can also mean God, the Supreme Lord. So by that reading, now it becomes Nakatritvam Nakarami, that God is not initiating the activity or performing the activity or bringing the fruit. So neither the soul or the super soul. You know, in everyone's heart there are 2 souls there. One is you, Atma, and the other is Paramatma. So if the Atma is not initiating the flow of activities, performing them and bringing the fruits, then maybe the Paramatma is doing it. And Krishna in this verse is saying, no, I'm not doing it either, don't look at me. Because, you know, someone could say they could be doing something. Of course, when they're successful, they take credit for it, but then something fails. Oh God, why did you do that to me? I was successful, but failure, that's blamed on God. Why me? So in this verse, Krishna is saying, you are not doing it, and I'm not doing it either. Then who's doing it? So then the answer to the mystery is in the last line. Svabhavastu pravartate. Pravartate means that is initiating. What is initiating and making the cycle of activities take place? Swabhav. Now, swabhav is a technical term in Vedanta, and it means samskars, impressions in your subconscious mind. So, due to experiences in previous lives, we have impressions of different activities, different interactions, And they're all stored in our subconscious mind. And when we're wandering in this life, we come into certain circumstances, and those samskars are triggered and they come into our mind. And if, let us say, someone had a pleasurable experience with going on a boat, then when that samskar comes into the mind, they think, I want to have a boat. And then they go and purchase a boat, like this. So the soul is only sakshi. Sakshi means the witness. The soul is witnessing from the impressions in the subconscious mind. They're coming in a particular order according to karma into the conscious mind, and the soul is watching it and identifying with it. And so because the soul identifies with it, he allows his pran to then move the body along with the root of that impression. So when the mind becomes peaceful and you go into a state of trance, even a shallow trance, the first stage of trance, savikalpa samadhi, you can look around you and you can see everyone walking in the high street is on autopilot. Right? The souls are there, they're kind of in a comatose state. They're on autopilot. And just their sanskars are impelling them, going to this shop, going to that shop, and so on. Like this. Everyone is on. You can see it. Once the mind becomes calm, and you're no longer under the control of your own samskars, then you can realize how other people are under the control of their samskars, or not. If you meet a pure devotee, you can recognize this person is not under the control of any worldly sanskar. You see? The worldly sanskars will not engage one to be absorbed in all the beautiful poetry of Rupa Goswami and the glories of Vrindavan, all of these things, the Siddhanta of the Sandarbhas and these things, and chanting Harinam for hours and hours every day. The material impressions will not do this. So, this is an example of the type of wisdom and change and deep X-ray vision of reality that begins to develop once the mind becomes steady and peaceful and devoted to Sri Krishna. So contemplate that. We'll sing one short kirtan, and then I want to tell you a story from the Vedas, and then we'll sing another kirtan, and then we'll complete our program for this evening.
Hey,
Now, come with me. Thousands of years ago, in ancient India, in the city of Avantipur, one of the famous holy cities of ancient India. But now that place is called Ujjain. Do you know Ujjain? In those days it was called Avantipur. So in that city, there was one Brahmin. He was born in the priestly caste, but he was very greedy. And instead of focusing on his Brahminical duties, he became engaged in commerce. He became very much engaged in agriculture. And he built for himself a very big commercial agricultural enterprise. And he became extremely wealthy. He collected a huge amount of wealth and he used to count it. And he was like a yaksha. A yaksha means some type of strange creature that guard the treasures of Kuber, the treasure of the heavenly planets. So instead of focusing on his spiritual life, he became like a yaksha, and he was very miserly. Though he collected so much wealth, he was not spending it on his family. He was not giving in charity for good causes. He wasn't helping anyone. He was just hoarding. And because of this, he became so unpopular. The general people, they didn't like him. And even his own family members, they grew to hate him also. So because he was not using his wealth and whatever he had in the service of God, then the devatas, the demigods, they were angry with him and they cursed him. And one disaster after another came in his life. And slowly but surely, his entire empire was dismantled. Sometimes some thieves came and they stole his wealth. Sometimes there was a fire and some of his properties burnt down. Whatever, or by negligence, in so many different ways, gradually he became bankrupt. And because when he was wealthy, he wasn't kind to anyone, so now when he was bankrupt, no one wanted to help him. And even his own family, they disowned him. And they just wanted to kick him out from the house when he became old. So that time, that Brahmin of Avantipur, he left his home and he took sannyas. He accepted the renounced order of life. He accepted the Tridanda, the triple staff of renunciation. So this triple staff, there are three dandas. There's four actually, but there are three main ones. And they represent the body, mind and words. One should give danda, discipline. Discipline your body, mind and words and engage them in the service of the Supreme Lord. And what is the Jiva Danda for the soul? So he accepted the renounced order, and actually he finally felt happy. He was thinking, just see, I was thinking that misfortune had fallen upon me and that I was losing everything and everyone was turning against me. But actually, instead of being disturbed by this, some detachment has arisen in my heart. And I realized that actually I am a spiritual being. And I was just absorbed. I was immersed. I was enchanted by all external things. And now that allurement has gone. I am no longer attracted by those things. And detachment, renunciation has appeared in my heart. So he thought to himself, oh, it must be the blessing of the Supreme Lord. It must be. Because usually when people, they lose things in their life, when they fail, then they become depressed. They don't become detached, they're still attached, and that's why they suffer. But he became detached and he felt inner satisfaction. And so he thought, oh, it must be because at some point in this life or in a previous life, I received the blessing of a sadhu. Some saint came into my life and looked upon me with his merciful glance, and this has brought about my good fortune. So this is true, that the mercy of God only comes to us. The mercy of the Supreme Lord rides in the vehicle of the saints. It's the saints who distribute divine mercy in this world. So if any spiritual inspiration or spiritual good fortune comes to us, it is because of knowingly or unknowingly we have pleased a saint and received the blessing of a saint. So he accepted this, and he felt great regret for wasting his time, for wasting his life, and his miserliness also, his just lack of compassion for others. So he felt great contrition, and he was repenting for his wasted time. And now he had his danda, and he had his japamala, and he had a little water pot for carrying water, for purifying himself before meditation and so on, and a begging bowl to beg something and to eat from, and just a few old torn cloths. So now he was living as a mendicant, and he was traveling from place to place. But as he was traveling, he would sometimes go to a village, and the children there, and not only the children, sometimes the older persons, they would say, oh, look at this beggar. What is he doing in our village? And instead of respecting him as a saint, they would tease him. Sometimes they would steal his danda. Someone would snatch his rosary, his japamala. Someone else would steal his begging bowl. Sometimes he would go begging, and then someone would throw ash in his begging bowl. Oh, eat this. People began to be quite cruel to him. Even one day, he was eating, and some older person had told a little small child, who was only a few years old, to go over and stand behind it and then pee on his plate. Now he'd taken a vow, monabrat, a vow of silence. So that was a great challenge for all the naughty boys in different villages. Let's provoke him and poke him and try to make him say something, because he's a Moni Baba. He's a saint who's taken a vow of silence. So in this way, he was absorbing his mind in remembering Krishna, but from all sides, cruel and ignorant persons were tormenting him and giving him many problems. But he could never be provoked. He never became angry. He never retaliated. He never got involved in an altercation, because he was very humble and sincere. And he knew that the ways of the world are not the ways of the spiritual path. And also you should know this truth, that if a person claiming to be a spiritualist has the mood of lokapriya, lokapriya means I want to be loved by everyone, then that is not a spiritualist. That is a charlatan. That is a charlatan and a materialist in the disguise of a spiritualist, who is really after only reputation and honor, distinction and status. Because the ways of the world and the ways of the divine world are not the same. So one who is on the spiritual path, he cannot have this mood, lokapriya, everyone will love me and everyone will be, I'll be popular. I'll be popular with everyone. Because those whose time has not come, those whose souls are not being awakened, they're very determined to be fixed in their ignorant position and their worldly activities, which are in complete contradiction to the spiritual path. And therefore, one of the first signs that you have come to the pure spiritual path is that persons around you will turn on you. And this is why spiritual enlightenment is very rare. Because the general person, they don't make decisions based on what is true, but they make decisions based on some social consensus filter. In other words, they hear some idea and they don't think, is it true or not? They think, if I accept this idea, what will other people think about me? You see? So if you are always functioning under the control of a social consensus filter, you will never find the truth. You will just be with the ignorant masses. And so we see that every great spiritual personality actually experienced persecution, right? Perhaps you've heard of Jesus Christ. He was persecuted. Perhaps you've heard of Prahlad Maharaj, right? Even his own father wanted to kill him in so many different ways. What about Ramanujacharya? Also, a king tried to capture him and kill him, but he was saved by the bravery of his disciple, Koresh. So there are many examples throughout history of great saints, and they underwent many tribulations. Because when you turn towards the spiritual world, then the material world will turn against you. But what you should know is that it's not unfavorable. In spiritual life, everything is favorable. Everything becomes favorable. All the dualities of the world become transformed into opportunities. We see that the entire environment is rushing forward to help us progress. Even if from an outer point of view, it may seem that one is facing some stiff opposition from the materialistic sector of life. So, when you take up the path of pure devotion, if problems come, then don't be surprised and give up. That's the way it is. That's the test. You know, if you want to go on the plane, you have to go through the TSA first, right? You have to go through the X-ray and the security and everything. So if you want to go to the spiritual world, we'll be tested first. We'll be tested to see, what have you got in your pocket? You're not bringing some egotistical desire there that you're trying to sneak into the spiritual world, right? See? So all that stuff has to be removed. So these things, these tribulations, they're a test, but they're also a great opportunity to win the heart of Krishna. You see? Because when Sri Krishna sees that his devotee is in every situation staying optimistic and positive and never giving up his service, and without thinking about his own the comfort and enjoyment, then Krishna's heart is melting. And after some time, then Krishna just thinks, oh, I don't have anything in my treasury valuable enough to reward you for your dedication, your devotion, your tolerance. And so I'm just going to have to give you myself. And Krishna gives himself to the devotee. So the Brahmin from Avantipur, he experienced this. By the blessing of a saint, somehow or other, his life was a disaster, but in the midst of disaster, he saw actually this is a blessing. He became detached and became fully devoted. And then he met with many obstacles. There's a famous saying in Sanskrit. Srayanksi bahuvignani. That means when you're about to do something which is very positive, so many obstacles will immediately appear to block your path. See? But when you're about to do something completely stupid and disastrous, then, there's no traffic on the road and all the lights are green and you can just go in the fast lane to your own ruination. But if you want to do something really spiritually positive, obstacles must come. But they're both a test and also an opportunity to win the heart of Krishna. So never be discouraged. Now, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many Geets, that means songs. So Bhagavad Gita is one song, it's a song of Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many Geets, also like Gopi Geet, Venu Geet, Pranay Geet, Yugal Geet, and so on. Viraha Geet, Mahishi Geet. So this Avanti Brahmin, who became a mendicant when he was being teased by others, he remained silent. He was not provoked by them. But when he was alone, he began to sing a song. And that song is called the Bhikshu Geet. Bhikshu Geet means the song of the mendicant. So what we're going to do now, we're all going to learn one verse of the song of the mendicant. The song of the happy, detached mendicant. And try to imbibe his spirit, his connection with the eternal truth in the face of all difficulties. So, together we can sing. Nayam jano me sukha dukha heto na devatatma graha karma kala mana param karanam atmananti samsara chakram parivartayenya. So here, the mendicant, he's saying, Nayam Jano, not these people. That means all the people who were harassing him and tormenting him. Nayam Jano, not these people. Me Sukha Dukkha Hetu. Hetu means the cause, and Sukha Dukkha means happiness and distress. Me means unto me. So all these people who appear, I can see them directly, tormenting me. They are not the cause of my happiness and distress. So this is something we should all know. Don't blame your problems on others. They are not the cause. They are just delivering our karma. We have given a problem to someone in the past, and now the karma has come around, and this person is just delivering the karma to us. So, Nayam Jano Me Sukha Dukkha Heto. These people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Na Deva Tatma. Na Deva means it's not the gods. It's not that the gods are cursing me. Of course the gods, they were against him and they spoiled his business and everything. But that's not the cause of happiness and distress. Na Deva. The gods are not the cause. Atma. Here the word Atma means the body. My physical body, Atma has many synonyms. In this context, it means the body. My body is not the cause of happiness and distress. Then, Graha. Graha means the planets. You know? Someone say, oh, I'm in my Satan Dasha. Now I'm going through the Sarisati. And so someone is thinking, oh, these, the planets are on my case. Now I've got to buy this ring and have this jewel for that planet and this necklace for that planet and an amulet with the Navagrahas. And I have to go and offer some coconuts to Shani Dev and so on. Perhaps the Westerners, they don't identify with it so much, but the Indian persons know. So, but the person thinks, oh, it's the grahas, it's the 9 planets, and they're in bad positions in my chart and they're harassing me, so somehow we have to propitiate them. But the bhikshu, the mendicant, the mendicant is saying, no, it's not these people, it is not the gods, it is not my own body, it is not the grahas, it is not karma. Even though the suffering or happiness, whatever comes to our life, is our karma, but the situation that we're in is not the cause of happiness and distress. That's not the cause. because he's in bliss. He's being tormented, he lost everything, and he's so happy. So you can't say, well, I've got this bad karma, and that's why I'm upset. No. It's not karma, and it's not kal. Kal means time. It's time that delivers our destiny. So it's none of these things. But what is it? Manaparam karanam atmananti. The learned persons, they say that the param karam, that is the ultimate cause, is manaha, the mind. Your own mind is the problem. It's not other people. You know, Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist, he said, hell is other people. But what he didn't know is the song, the Bhikshu Geet. If he knew the Bhikshu Geet, he would know that hell is his own mind. So, mana param karnam atmananti. The learned persons, they say that the ultimate cause is the mind. Sangsarya chakram parivartiyat. Which, that means which? That mind is parivartiyat, causing me to perpetually move in the samsara chakra, in the cycle of birth and death, lifetime after lifetime. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Atmaiva ripo atmana. The enemy of the soul is his mind. And therefore, today we have been discussing the great virtue of a peaceful mind in devotional service. Only to try to become peaceful, it will not be a long-term solution. Because you can be peaceful for some time, but then some situation will come and some impressions will come. They will rise up and cause the mind to be disturbed. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Chaito darpanamajanam bhavamahadavagninirvapanam. The fire, the forest fire of material existence can be extinguished when Chaito darpanamajanam. Chaito means the chitta, your subconscious mind, which is like a mirror. It is full of impressions. They're like dust on the mirror. And those impressions are coming and making us experience the happiness and distress. But when we chant the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare. Then the power of this mantra does deep cleaning. Deep cleaning. It goes into the subconscious mind and begins to smooth away all those impressions in the chitta. So we no longer come under the control of turbulent attachments, desires, and so on. And so, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said two things. Kirtaniya sadahari. Chant continuously, as much as you can. But while you're chanting, in the meantime, while you're waiting for the holy name to manifest its full spiritual glory, Trinadapi Srunichena, Tororapi Sishruna, Amanena Manadena, Kirtanya Sadari. Try to be more humble than a blade of grass. If you step on a blade of grass, it bends down, but when you walk away, it stands back up again. You see? It has some spirit of vengeance. So we have to be completely free from the spirit of vengeance. We don't want to be vindictive or take some vengeance for anything, any injustice that anyone has done to us. Let it be gone. If we just tolerate it, then that karma is finished. If we engage with it, then we perpetuate the karma on and on and on to the next episode. So first, be more humble than a blade of grass. Be more tolerant than a tree. A tree, if you cut the tree does not complain. Tree is very generous. It will give fruits and flowers and leaves and whatever. To whatever anyone asks for, the tree will give. And if the tree is standing in the blazing sun, but it gives shade to others. So it helps others even in the midst, without thinking of its own difficulty. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, be tolerant like a tree, and amanina manadena. Give respect to everyone, every person. Even if that person, there may be not a high status, there may be low status. Even if the person is not so educated, or even if they have no redeeming worldly qualities, but they're a soul, and in their heart Krishna is living there also. And so if you don't respect everyone you meet, then you cannot become conscious of the presence of God in everybody. So our very God consciousness depends upon giving honor to others. Without that honor, we lose our God consciousness. So give respect to everyone, and don't demand to be respected oneself. Whatever honor will come, it will come according to karma or according to Krishna's arrangement. There's no need to be thirsty for that. So in this way, those who are humble and tolerant and respectful, they're especially tolerating their own mind. They're tolerating the urge of the mind, because the mind wants to assert itself as a great person in the physical plane. The mind is materially ambitious, so one should tolerate the mind and just try to be the servant of the servant of the servant of Sri Krishna. We don't have to impress everyone. We just have to impress one person in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. And if one person in the spiritual world sees that we are trying to become pure in our devotion, then just by their blessing, Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, Yasya prasadat nagati kutoka. By the mercy of Guru, one gets the mercy of Krishna, and life becomes perfected. So these things, tolerate. As Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, Apuryamanam machala patishtam samudramapa pravishanti sarve tadvat karmayam pravishanti sarve sashantin apnoti nakamakami. The meaning is that just as many rivers flow into the ocean, but the ocean remains within its boundaries. So in the same way, that person into whose mind so many thoughts and feelings flow, but he does not act on them, that person can attain peace. Not the person who engages with every thought that arises in the mind. So Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Korya Aikya. The great Saint Narottam Das Thakur prayed, may my heart become one with the words that have emanated from the lips of my Guru. My Guru has spoken about the path and how to attain perfection in spiritual life. Let my heart not be carried away by past impressions, but become one with the divine message. And then we can attain pure perfect love for Sri Krishna. The realization of Krishna comes when? You know, there are so many stages in bhakti. First, adosrada, faith. And then sadhusanga, associating with saintly persons. Then bhajana kriya, engaging in the activities of bhakti. Then anartha nivritti, the cleansing away of material contamination. And then nishta, steadiness. So steadiness, that's like, you're halfway there now. That's the midpoint. Nishta, steadiness. And it means especially the steadiness of the mind. Ekagrata chitta. So if you can get to the midpoint, then when you chant the holy name and when you hear about Krishna Katha, then you can see the beautiful form of Sri Krishna reflected on your pure heart. It is not that you have to wait to the highest stage of Prem. Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav, Prem. It is not when you get to the highest stage, then you can realize Sri Krishna. But rather, if you come to the middle stage, that is the stage of Nishta, then in the steady mind, the first glimpse of the beautiful Vigraha, the form of Sri Krishna playing his flute, standing in a threefold bending way, smiling, glancing here and there. Thank you. It will appear. And then when you come to the next stage, Ruchi, not only Krishna's form, but also his qualities, his softness, his fragrance, and his associates. When one sees how the divine beings, the associates of God, love him and serve him, only then do we understand really what bhakti is. Only in seeing things in this world we cannot realize. But when we go into the trance, the first stages of trance, Savikalpa Samadhi, and we see Krishna's form, qualities, and then the associates, and how they love him and serve him spontaneously, just in a flow of love without any calculation. Then we can understand what is this devotion, and the greed comes. I want to be like them. And then in the stage of asakti, your soul's own spiritual form will begin to manifest. It will be abhas, just the reflection of your spiritual form. And then from asakti, the stage of bhav comes, and your abhiman, that is your ego, your self-identity, will become firmly fixed in your spiritual identity rather than the physical identity. And this is as far as we can go in this life, generally, the devotee will come to that stage. If you can come to that stage, in your next life, you will not take birth here, but in the spiritual form, you will enter into the pastimes of Krishna. But you can have a preview of those pastimes here, from the stage of asakti onwards. You can have a preview of that world. So, it's most worthwhile. Try to tolerate your mind. Know that there's no enemy. No one is your enemy except for your own mind. The cause of all problems is not other people. It is not the gods. It is not your body. It is not the grahas, the planets. It is not your karma. And it is not kal, the movement of time. It is only the turbulent mind is the problem. So, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be peaceful and peacefully engage always in hearing, chanting, and remembering, and serving Sri Krishna under the guidance of Sri Guru, the spiritual master. Gaur Premananda. I'm very grateful that you sat peacefully and patiently and listened attentively. Tomorrow, we want to discuss some more basic things, but in a very broad way. I'll tell you why. Because people often have some hesitation or reluctance to invest fully their energies in the path of bhakti. And the reason is this. Because they think, it's a big, wide world. And there are so many paths, and there are so many ideas and everything, and I don't want to become narrow or sectarian. So, what we want to discuss tomorrow, we'll begin a 2-part seminar, and it's called The Complete Synthesis of Science, Philosophy, and Religion. And we'll show how the conclusion of Vedanta, our Bhakti tradition, includes everything from all the disciplines of science and philosophy and religion. It includes everything that's whatever is correct about those disciplines is there in the Vedanta tradition. Whatever is limitation and defective in those disciplines is left aside. And over and above that, in the Vedanta tradition, whatever you'll find, knowledge you'll find anywhere else is there, and also you'll find a whole world of experience which cannot be found anywhere else. So when a person becomes fully invested in the path of bhakti, they have not gone from a broad world of experience into a narrow sectarian vision, but their broad world of experience is like a tiny grain of sand on the beach, actually. And they're just leaving that narrow perspective and coming into the broad ocean. That is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the endless ocean of the nectar of Bhakti Rasa. So this is what we'll be discussing tomorrow. And you'll see all the entire history of philosophy, science and religion from the ancient times, from ancient India and ancient Greece through to the Renaissance and the Enlightenment up to modern and postmodern days. Everything will be analyzed, and we want to give you a key. We want to give you the Rosetta Stone. We want to give you the holy grail of philosophy by which you can interpret and understand the entire spectrum of human thoughts and understand their strengths and weaknesses and come to the conclusion, Vedanta. Veda means knowledge, Anta means the last thing, the final conclusion. So there's so much doubt, uncertainty, and confusion in the world. If a person goes to college to study philosophy, then to just start studying this one, that one, and it becomes like an endless jungle and you go in and you can't find your way out, and there's no conclusion anywhere, and everyone is contradicting each other. So this is because most of these ideas are the product of the limited human mind. So we'll be going into the deep psychology, the deep psychological roots of all these various conceptions. And once we remove the defect which is in the root of all of these ideas, then we can clearly evaluate the entire history of science, philosophy and religion and come to the conclusion which is Vedanta. So be ready for that. We'll begin tomorrow morning. Gaur Premanande!